Are you able to demo this robot?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Power off, then we can go back to our rest position.
It's just too early for me to even consider it.
Have you heard of Jumia Foods?
Yes.
What makes you so different?
Get out of here.
My dear people, if you are not still following the lion's den, hey, all I can say is I'm sorry, but you're missing out from the biggest business reality show ever in Nigeria. I will not even be joking about this. You guys, can you just hop in already? Let's talk about what happened in the Lion's Den episode 8. It was hot. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie and welcome to Personality Highlights. Today we're doing a review of the Lion's Den episode 8, and it has been very exciting. It has been very intriguing. It has been content value packed. Thank you so much for hopping into my channel. In this space I do reviews on reality shows. I talk about trending topics, I talk about social issues, I talk a lot about different kind of things, sometimes random things. But basically here, reality show is a big topic here, and we're talking about the Lion's Den. Guys, it was a hot one. It was a hot one, I would not lie. And for every episode of the Lion's Den, it is always an encounter. You know, it's always an experience of seeing 4 entrepreneurs get into the den to pitch to these 5 amazing serial investors for an opportunity for them to invest in their business. And it wasn't different from the previous episodes we've seen, as we saw 4 amazing entrepreneurs get into the den. Guys, some deals were sealed and some were cocky. So I'm going to be taking it one after the other so that we'll just get a real breakdown of the whole show. Basically guys, I'm just going to be taking my time to talk about each of these entrepreneurs, what they pitched, how they pitched, the mistakes they made while they were pitching, and probably the things that we might learn from this to help ourselves get better in case we want to find ourselves in situations like this where we're trying to embrace investors into our business. So guys, let's start from the very first person who got into the den. So the first set of entrepreneurs who got in were these 2 entrepreneurs, Adejumo and Abdul. They were with their company Phoenix Robotics, and Phoenix Robotics is a manufacturing company that is into robotics, and they were pitching their robotics machine that was supposed to be a manufacturing stuff gadget that was going to be used by manufacturers to help safety and to reduce manpower, you know, and avoid accidents in manufacturing companies. And basically, I mean, it was quite intriguing to watch them demonstrate this robotics. And Bolaji actually asked if they could do a demonstration, and of course they were willing to do that, and they did show a sample of how their robotics worked. And as they were doing that, Paul chipped in and said, this is obviously not a life size, this is not a giant robotics, and asked them if they had produced a life size, giant size robotics before that will be, you know, able to really do the manufacturing work. And unfortunately they said they had not done a life size, that this was a prototype, and of course with this gadget down, that producing the life size would not be easy according to them. Bolaji went as far as asking them if they have they've invented any of the robotics, and they said well, that they had invented parts, that this was basically more of like the real project that they had in hand. And Mr. Paul went ahead to also ask the question, what's the cost of producing this robotics? And he said 400,000 naira. And when they were asked their numbers, they said they were to create it for 400,000 and to sell off at 600,000. And the next question was, if I import, how much would it cost to import? And this guy said $1,000 to $2,000, you know, because guys, we all know that these things are imported into Nigeria, and these guys were trying to solve a big problem of getting robots to do the stuff for us in our industrial markets. You know, it was quite an interesting pitch from Phoenix Robotics. They were asking for 20 million for a 12% equity share. But guys, unfortunately, even though with their beautiful tech, even though they had thought through their business, one of the problems that one of the major sports that Mr. Paul asked was, have you done it? Have you used this machine to solve a problem? Do you have customers that have used it? What can we invest in? What can you show as a proof that this thing is working? And unfortunately, they said they had not done it, used it in any in any industry. They claimed they had customers that were willing to buy, but they said some of the money was supposed to go into the marketing, and that was where the Lions had a problem with them. So it was clearly more like, this was more like a startup robotic company, that if they had a good sample of what they've done in the past, or they have produced a product that was really solid and not just a demo, maybe they would have stood a chance to get any of the Lions interested in investing. But unfortunately, even though Bolaji, even though Kiari, even though Kiari, Paul, Dan loved everything about their business, unfortunately, these Lions are there for big investments. They're there for businesses that have a structure and can actually cash out soon. So it was quite unfortunate, because Mrs. Adenike said that she wished she was Bill Gates that could fund them into tech, and probably that she would probably not look back and just do that for them. So unfortunately, Phoenix Robotics did not get any funding. They didn't get any 20 million. Neither did they get to negotiate about what the Lions are going to do in their business, because clearly it was more like a startup. And if you know these Lions, you know they don't want to invest in startups. They talked about patient capital being involved, and unfortunately, it was not the right place for them to pitch their business, and that was how they left empty-handed. That was quite a show, guys. I would not lie. The first entrepreneur gave us quite a show. Now, the second entrepreneur had some very inviting, some very it was an interesting episode. It was an interesting time watching these entrepreneurs come out and do things. Guys, let's talk about the second entrepreneur. Here you go. The second person to pitch was Rosemary. She was pitching her soya beans business, and Rosemary, I mean, after she pitched it, you guys know the food. Most of the people who have come into this den to get to be asked simple questions and very, very safety conscious questions. Mr. Dan went ahead to ask her if she had incorporated her company, if she had a patent, or if she had an NAFDAC number.
For now, no, it's in process. After incorporating the name, I've gotten all the procedures. I've inquired about the procedures. After getting the business name, I have to go to trademark before getting NAFDAC. So it's a chain of process.
So selling it even without the NAFDAC number, even without your registration?
Unfortunately, she said she didn't have that she heard that it takes time to do that. And so it was quite unfortunate that Rosemary came into the den without a registered business, without a NAFDAC number. So it was more glaring that she was selling her soya beans, directly to her consumers. There was no digital footprint. There was no business structure. There was no business identity. And even though Rosemary had a very touching story, she said she had stated she was an orphan, she was struggling, she knew the benefits of the soya beans, how it had helped her. Even though she had a very emotional story, even at some point she almost broke down trying to explain how important the soya beans business was to her. These Lions cannot be blackmailed, I will tell you. They are there for the business. So quite unfortunately, Mrs. Adenike, Bolaji actually chipped in and said that, he understood that she needed to hustle, but that, clearly it was just a hustle and that she didn't have a structure. There was nothing to invest in. And guys, this is like a big lesson, everybody had something to say, and at some point she really wanted to break down. Mrs. Adenike came in with a soothing effect, She said she admired her courage, but she said something very blunt. She said, you're not ready yet. You're not ready for business. But at the end of the day, Mrs. Adenike offered a mentorship and offered to put Rosemary through a national women program that would help her understand what her business needed when it comes to branding, structure, getting the ideal customers for her business, and the rest of it. And guys, it was quite intriguing to, to see that lion. Like, this is not the first time Mrs. Adenike is doing this. She always stretches out her hands to help, especially these females who come into the den, seeking for an opportunity. Sometimes they don't go with an investment, but she offers mentorship in place. And so I think it was quite, it was quite emotional. Even all of the lions had to hail Mrs. Adenike for, helping out, and really clearly being willing to sponsor her all through. Paul also chipped in that that his NGO was going to be willing to sponsor her, take her through to make sure that she gets everything that she wants. Clearly, guys, even with an emotional story, it's very obvious that those lions, when they don't see a business, they will not invest. Guys, it's just apparent that these guys are not charity guys. They're not here for a charity organization. It's clearly business, and they needed a structured business to be able to invest in. People like Paul Wanibe said that this is not a business and it's not investable. So the biggest words, the biggest sentence they spelled to Rosemary about her business was that her business was not investable. And basically, she was the second person who got into the den and didn't get any sort of funding whatsoever.
Without incorporating a company, first and foremost, there is nothing for people to invest in.
Did you hear what I heard? Guys, my ears were kind of filled with the content that I heard here. All right, so that was that for the second entrepreneur. Let's talk about the third entrepreneur who got into the den. Now, the third person, the third entrepreneurs who got, we had more teams getting into the den this time. I think Rosemary was the only person who came in alone. The third entrepreneur was Adigbile Assis and his other team members. They were 400 level students from Federal University of Agriculture, and they were asking for 2 million naira for a 10% equity share in their business. So they were pitching agrico.ng, an e-commerce platform that connects farmers, to their customers, and they have raw food and cooked meals. And the first person to ask the question was Kiara, and Kiara was, who are your competitors? And he asked them if they had heard about Jumia Foods, and they said yes. They said the difference was that theirs also served raw food and not just cooked food. Anyways, in totality, the Lions were struggling with a lot of questions to this young agriculture student. The question of how do you guys transport, logistics? Adenike asked that question, that she was struggling to understand the logistics on how they move their products, and they said they actually partnered with a logistics firm, and then Paul, Paul can be very thorough with his questions, and Paul went as far as asking what their specialty was, if they buy the products from the farmers. Guys, this is not the first time Paul is asking this question from these guys who come in with the concept of agri-tech, like we're doing agri-tech. Clearly these entrepreneurs are more online based platforms, and really I don't think I see anything techy about most of the food businesses that have been coming here, apart from Lombas, the only agri company that has been that has been able to get an investment so far. So basically, at the end of the day, Mr. Paul could not understand what part of the business that they were focusing on, if it was distribution, if it was logistics. He said they were doing too many things, and they were buying, they were repackaging, they were storing in their warehouse, and they were distributing. So he actually advised them to stick to one part of the business, and he actually strongly told them to focus on the e-commerce platform. But guys, one of the things that busted the whole bubbles was Adigbile's inability to compose himself. From the movements from his hands, we could tell that he was very uncomfortable. He was anxious. Probably this was his first time standing in front of investors, or maybe getting into, I don't know, but there was this anxiety all over him, and it was really loud. He was always trying to distract or interject when the Lions were talking, and basically his wrong answer to Mr. Paul's advice was a clear indication that he didn't understand what Mr. Paul was talking about. Paul was talking about him considering e-commerce platform, and he said something about university, and he had to explain that it was not about the geographical location but more about the business structure. And that was when they had to point out to Adigbele Aziz that he was not listening, that he needed to learn how to listen. Mrs. Adenike went as far as telling her that she was getting professional advice for free, and if she wasn't listening, that she would that he was going to be losing so much from his business. Mr. Dan had a lot of things to say, but one of the striking lessons, one of the striking things that was told to Aziz was that he should learn to listen, that would help him in his business. I think one of his team members was able to calmly tell Mr. Paul that they were going to be considering the e-commerce platform more, and even at the end of the whole talk, it was clear that Aziz was still trying to interrupt, and that was how they were just sent out of the den. I think 2 million, most of the lions complained, even said that 2 million was was just too small to invest in, and was not even going to be enough for their business. So it was clear that these guys had not projected right. It was clear that they didn't understand the business that they were doing. Bolaji said that he knew that this business was not what he was supposed to be doing, that he probably needs to check back. And guys, that's how the third entrepreneurs who got into the den went out empty-handed without a dime. Okay, so that's literally it all. And then the final deal was sealed with this fourth entrepreneur who got into the den. The fourth entrepreneur, guys, these guys were an eyeful. They came with the full package. I will not even lie. So the fourth entrepreneur business that pitched was Coupin, and Coupin was headed by Obinna Okoro and his colleague. They were asking for 18 million naira for a 3.5% equity share, and their company was a real-time location-based app that connected businesses and customers to discounted promotions that are ongoing, and basically everything they pitched, they sounded really, on point. So Bolaji was the first person to ask a question, and the question was, tell me about you. Bolaji loves history and story, and Obinna said he was an electrical engineering student, and that he had worked with a company in the UK, and he had done his master's there. And they also asked about his colleague, and the guy said he was a computer science and a lead software engineer. They asked him what he did, he gave his background, and Mr. Dan, at the end of the day, Paul was interested, Kiara was interested. Kiara asked if it was they were offering the same services with they asked who their competitors were, and they actually mentioned Deal Day. But that Deal Day was out of business. And Kiara asked if they knew anything about Quick Cash, and they said if he was doing the same thing. Obinna was able to differentiate what his company was offering and what Quick Cash was offering. But even though he had a very concise answer, and he was very, very, everything he said was very eloquent. Kiara was already biased because he said he had unfortunately invested in Quick Cash and had probably lost his money and the business wasn't running. So he said because of conflicting interests and maybe because he had a biased mindset about the business being pitched, he was going to be opting out. Mr. Paul said the same thing. Paul said that his landmark group was already working on something close to this, and that there will be conflict of interest if he got into the team with them, and that was how those two lions opted out. So unfortunately, Kiara and Paul Wanibe opted out from the deal because of conflict of interest. But guys, Bolaji is this serial investor. He was quite impressed with the whole thing, and eventually he offered to give them all the money they needed, 18 million, but he was asking for an 8% equity share instead of 3.5 that they had pitched earlier, which is like ×2 and even more. And so Obinna chipped in that they already had an offer to sell out the Coupin for $2 to $5 million. And that negotiation was still going on, and that because he was struggling to make sure that he keeps the valuation right, that they should go down to 6%. But Bolaji was like, you know what, I will negotiate alongside with you so you don't have anything to worry about. And it was a deal. It was a deal signed, sealed, and delivered. Bolaji didn't get on this deal alone.
Bolaji, are you doing that alone? You want to come along?
Because Mr. Dan was very much interested in the deal, and Adinike was very much interested in the deal. So these three lions hopped into the investment plan for Coupin, and they offered 18 million for a 1/3 participation for the business at an 8% equity share. Guys, it was an amazing time. So, I mean, literally from this episode, we only see one entrepreneur making it out of the den with full cash. Full cash, guys. There is so much to talk about this. Basically, that's everything that happened right here. Guys, I had a field time. So, at the end of the day, we had a total of 4 entrepreneurs getting to the den. And of course, the deals were quite interesting. I would not even lie one bit. It was super interesting. Guys, basically that was everything that happened in the Lion's Den episode 8. And you know how we do it in this channel. I probably might be taking my time now to talk more about these entrepreneurs one after the other, so we can do like justice, you know, into talking about everything that went down. Guys, if you have not subscribed yet, please take this minute to hit on the red subscribe button. Be a part of this channel because the episodes are getting more interesting and we have a lot. We have a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for your watch time. It's been beautiful talking and bringing this to your table. I'm going to see you all in another episode. Do not forget to check out my older videos for more content like this. And of course, I mean, I'll be coming back with more juicier details about the next things, the next deals, and of course, some very, very insightful information about the Lion's Den. And guys, if you wish to be a part of the Lion's Den episode season 2, the registrations are ongoing. You have to have an EcoBank account. That is kind of, you know, ban detail that you put in to submit your entries and the rest of it. I hope I've been able to bring value to you today. I'm going to see you all in another video. For now, thank you so much. Bye-bye and have a fantastic day.